Chapter 12 is mainly about forests and a little bit about some protected areas like national parks. Turn to page 309. There are some parts of the forest here that are important to know. And so I don't have a sticky note here, but I'm going to add one to know the caption and figure here for 12.3. So go ahead and do that in your book. Make sure you know the figure and caption. Make sure you know the top of the forest is called the canopy, that there's snags and fallen logs, and those are really important because they provide things that decompose into nutrients, hiding places for small animals and bugs and important invertebrates. So make sure that you know the names, the canopy, the understory, and then the importance of snags and fallen trees and logs as well. All right, on the next page, 310, we have old growth forests, which are sometimes called primary forests because they've never been logged. And the importance of old growth forests is that there is more biodiversity in it. And there are some crucial habitats in these old growth forests for some endangered species such as the spotted owl. And so a few years ago there was a controversy between loggers who wanted jobs to cut down trees and environmentalists who want to protect the spotted owl. And so about 10 or 15, even 20 years ago, this was kind of big news about protecting the spotted owl in the old growth forests. So forests sequester carbon. Sequester means take in and keep, and that's really important to help mitigate or prevent climate change. Know the economic benefits of forests. They provide us with a lot of money, not just in cutting down wood from trees, but also plants for medicines, dyes, and fibers. Basically, read and understand this whole section here about what are the economic benefits. The figure and caption here shows us all of the ecosystem services that forests provide. Really good stuff to be able to write about on an FRQ. Supporting biodiversity, providing fuel, wood, and lumber, returning organic matter to the soil, health, beauty, and recreation. Not all of these are ecosystem services. Some of them are ecological, but anything that we use for survival, like producing oxygen and providing fuel, wood, those are really your good ecosystem services to write about. All right, so we have a lot of forest loss. You can see that in the United States, this is 1620 versus today. We now protect what we have left. So if you cut down trees now, you have to replant them. And some areas are actually growing in forests because of replanting efforts in the US. But that is a rarity. In other continents, there's a huge amount of deforestation going on. So here are the problems with deforestation. First, when you don't have the roots of plants there, you're going to have some erosion and soil degradation issues. You're going to have species extinction, and I forgot the word here, so I'm going to write it in. So species extinction, biodiversity loss, and it adds CO2 to the atmosphere, which causes global warming, because you don't have the trees there to sequester, to take in the carbon anymore. And if you burn the trees, you actually add carbon to the atmosphere. Deforestation can collapse a civilization like Easter Island deforested. And then we have some evidence that that happened with the Mayans too in Central America. When you deforest, you cause an increase in the temperature in streams, which is going to change your species there. It's also going to cause an increase in the soil, so that's going to change your microbes in the soil because there's less shade. So less trees, less shade, increase the temperature in the streams. It's going to decrease groundwater because the tree roots help grab rainwater to soak into the ground to recharge your aquifers, your groundwater. So without those tree roots, you're going to have less groundwater. And so these are all the huge issues with deforestation and forest loss. Turning to the next page, 313, the figure and caption show really that it's our tropical forests like the Amazon down here in Brazil that are having huge amounts of loss. So North America, we're gaining, Europe is gaining, and that's through protection. But a lot of places, Africa is declining, South America is declining, 24% loss in Central America. So we have some huge forest losses in other continents, and that's a big worldwide problem because it controls the climate for the whole planet, it purifies air for the whole planet, it helps determine rainfall patterns for the whole planet, and so we need to be concerned about that even though we're in North America. On page 315, we have maximum sustainable yield. So our resource managers, whether it's forests or rangelands and grasslands or even fisheries, the managers, the government organizations, they have to decide how much can be cut to allow it to grow back. And that's our maximum sustainable yield. How much fish can be caught so that there's enough to repopulate for the next year? How many trees can be cut so that the trees can grow back and we still have healthy forests? That's our maximum sustainable yield. You need to know the National Forest Service. So they basically manage the use of the land. They allow logging, they allow recreation. Now, it's sustainable logging, so if you cut things down, you have to replant it in the United States. Gifford Pinchot is the guy who started the U.S. National Forest Service, and you do need to know him. Our picture down here is kind of fun because it shows us all of our publicly owned land in the U.S. in different colors, our forests, our rangelands, and in brown, our national parks. So you can see it's very heavy in the West with publicly owned land. And that's because by the time we realized around 1900 that we needed to save land, all that was left really was here. All the others was privately owned at that point. Okay, so even in the U.S., when we chop down forests, we're supposed, well, by law, have to replant it. That's the difference. Mature forest, replanted forest. So you're going to have some ecological issues with different kinds of forests. Different kinds of species live in these places. Sometimes they're called plantation forests. Think of like a Christmas tree farm, but that happens with other types of trees as well. So when you replant a forest, it's really a monoculture. What do they replant with up here? They replant with the most profitable species, mostly pine. Because pine grows quickly, they can harvest it again in about 15 or 20 years. So it's usually a monoculture, they're all the same age, and this equals less biodiversity because different species live in different species of trees, in different ages of trees, and so you're going to decrease your biodiversity. Less niches, less diversity. Sometimes they're called tree farms. So that style of logging is called clear cutting, and the problems with clear cutting is that the soil erodes away underneath it with all the trees gone. It allows for more sun, which changes your species. You have sun species instead of shade species. It's the cheapest method of logging, and it's also the safest, so that's a good thing for humans. It's the safest method because there's less chance for trees as they're falling to get caught on other trees. Here's some alternates to clear cut. So this is the clear cut system. Sometimes they lead a seed tree or a shelter wood here, and then sometimes they take trees in between and they select different kinds. So selection system is actually the best for the environment, but not as safe and not as cheap. But some places require this, like Idaho, northern Idaho. This is what is required because they want to keep their pristine forests. But in other places like Washington and Montana, they do clear cutting, and it's really, really ugly if you've ever seen it. The next page is the National Forest Management Act. So know the provisions. Here are the provisions. Basically, national forests have to practice for sustainability. It's also multiple use. It's not just for loggers. It's also for campers and backpackers and hikers. And so you have to allow multiple use, not just logging. You also have to do it sustainably and allow for maximum sustainable use. Now let's talk about fires. Fires are good. We hear so often that fires are bad. But actually, fires, low intensity frequent fires, are good. And the reason why is because they prevent megafire. They clear out debris on the forest floor. They thin the forest. They germinate some seeds, like sequoia trees have to have fire, the heat of fire. So if you have a seed that's been buried in the ground for a few years, the heat of the fire going above it on the soil will germinate that seed. And the same with the ponderosa pine. So for about 100 years in the United States, we really put out all of these little fires. And so now what's happening is we're getting huge mega fires, and we're trying to change that policy. So now we have our forests that are really unhealthy from fire suppression. So we put out these little fires that we shouldn't have, but we didn't know. And now what do? We can do some controlled burning. So how do we prevent mega fires? Is we can do some controlled burning in some places. So we set low fires on non-windy days and try to clear out our forests with controlled burns. And also to germinate seeds. They do that in Sequoia National Park to germinate the sequoia seeds. We do some salvage logging, so we allow companies to come in and just take out the old wood, the dead wood, and thin out the trees to make room for other trees to grow bigger. And this is all part of the Healthy Forest Restoration Act to try and manage these forests to prevent mega burns. One of the things that has happened because of fire suppression is that the mountain pine beetles have been allowed to take over in a lot of places. And so back east, if you're driving, you'll see these forests, and this is not turning from the fall. This is actually dead trees. And so these mountain pine beetles are a real problem. About 5 years ago, this was part of an FRQ, the pine mountain beetle, and how it was destroying forests and the issues surrounding it. So make sure you read the caption, and it explains what the pine mountain beetle does back east. Page 322, we have some sustainable forestry examples, and it just sort of explains it here. Just be able to understand how sustainable forestry and certifications work. Now let's go on to national parks on page 323. A national park is set aside for the public to enjoy, but you cannot extract resources. You can't log, you can't mine, you can't really take anything home. If you fish, it's catch and release. You can't eat the fish. The first national park was Yellowstone in the whole world, actually, not even just in the US, but it was in Yellowstone in the whole world. A national park has to be declared by Congress. All right, so sometimes there's littler places that are really important, and the president doesn't need Congress to establish national monuments through the Antiquities Act. So the Antiquities Act says the president can designate something as a national monument without Congress. And so the president can protect areas that are maybe not quite as big as a national park, but they're really important, and he doesn't need Congress to do that. Also know what a national wildlife refuge is, and that's a place where wildlife is protected. And also know what a wilderness area is. So a wilderness area is a little bit different than a national park. It's an area that it's pretty much kind of a leave no trace. They don't build roads, they don't build hotels and running water or electricity. You can use it, but you have to hike in or backpack in and then take everything out. And so it leaves pristine wilderness. We have a lot of them in California, like in the Sierras, and people use them frequently. They backpack in, they enjoy it. No cars are around, no hotels. It's just quite wonderful. And that's a wilderness area. Going on to page 327. We will actually continue with 327 in the next video.